Welcome to our RGC TAC meeting. I hope if this is not the best meeting you've had all July, that it will be the last. And so I'll start with the roll, and just to keep everybody on their toes, I like to confuse everybody. I'm going to start, because we're Ogden, I'm going to start with the O's and go down the alphabet and then start at the first. So if you're confused, that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to start with Ogden. I got Barton Brierley from Ogden. Have anyone else from Ogden here?
Brandon Ripien.
Perry. Plain City. Pleasant View. Riverdale. Roy.
Steve Parkinson.
South Ogden. South Weber. Sunset. Syracuse. Uinta. Washington Terrace. Weber County.
Rick Grover.
Sharon Bolos.
West Bountiful.
Chris Nelson.
West Haven. West Point. Willard.
Madison Brown.
Woods Cross. UDOT.
Ryan Halverson here with Region 1.
UTA.
Joe Larson.
FHWA. WFRC.
I'll take WFRC. We have myself, Dory Johnner, Ted Knowlton, Jordan Chandler, Hugh Van Wagenen, Lauren Victor, Jay Mosqueda, Megan Townsend, Tim Watkins, and that's it.
Okay. Then we start back at the top of the alphabet to confuse everybody. Bountiful. Fox Elder County. Bragg. Brigham City. Centerville. Clearfield.
Brad McElrath, Clearfield.
Welcome, Brad. Clinton. Davis County.
David Mitchell.
Farmington. Far West. Fruit Heights. Harrisville. Hill Air Force Base. Hooper. Kaysville. Layton.
Saker.
Marriott Slaterville. Mida. North Ogden. And North Salt Lake City.
Yep, we've got Allie Avery and Caden Baines. And Barton, does that mean that we get the weight of all the votes from Kaysville South because we're the only ones here?
Yes,
It does mean that.
Perfect.
yes. And that you can volunteer any of them for anything. Okay, anybody pop on late that want to just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Lance Evans, South Weaver.
Brandon. Olivia Vaughn's UTA.
I see Sarah Lawless, our GIS wizard, has joined from WFRC.
Okay.
Dave, you were gonna jump in, I think. Dave Peterson?
Yes, I'm here. I'm from Farmington City. Is this the roll call part?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Nice try, Dave. You tried to time it just perfectly, so you missed it, but
So now North Salt Lake gets dibs on Centerville South.
Okay. All right, so 2 items of business. Start with approval of April 17th, 2024 minutes. I will say I love the way you do minutes. They're really easy to follow. Would anybody make a motion to approve the minutes?
All motion to approve the minutes.
Have a second.
Second, Steve Parkinson, Roy City.
Okay. All right, so this is the way we take votes. If you agree with the motion, stay silent. If you oppose the motion, speak up. All right, so minutes are approved. And now, the next one, we will have on September 11th, we will have an in-person meeting. We've gone back and forth about whether we do these meetings virtual or in person. Kind of the vote was that we ought to do at least once, maybe twice a year in person. So our in-person one will be September 11th. And I'm going to volunteer Ogden to be our in-person location, mostly because the front runner drops us off, would drop you off like at 154 if you're coming from the south. If you're coming from the north, you need to talk to UTA about extending the front runner north of Ogden. But I thought that'd be a good opportunity for, you can be transit friendly, come to Ogden, we'll host. So let's plan on that. We do want to do a community highlight in our meetings, like North Ogden will do soon here. And so I'm going to ask for a volunteer to do that community highlight. And what we'll do is right after North Ogden gets done, we're going to do the vote. We're going to do the volunteer, and I'll do my my way of awkward silence. We'll just sit in awkward silence until someone volunteers. So be prepared for that right after Scott gives his presentation. So with that, Scott, will you share with us what's happening in North Ogden?
Sure, am I able to share my screen? Let's see.
I hope so. Jordan, is that available?
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Are you seeing just the presentation or the presentation with the notes?
Just the presentation.
All right, perfect, thanks. Well, thank you, everybody. The awkward silence trick did work. I did volunteer, and I'm happy I did, because with the number of communities we have, this won't come around for, I don't know what, 3 years or something again. Yeah. So let's just get this done. And also really always happy to talk about North Ogden, where we're at and what we've got going on. So with that, we'll run through a community spotlight. I did want to make sure everybody knows where North Ogden is. I kind of consider us a bit of a destination community. And the reason for that is that you don't really just find yourself in North Ogden. So we don't have an interstate off ramp that goes into Far West and Harris and into Pleasant View. And we don't have any fixed guideway transit. So you have Washington Boulevard coming up north. We are a gateway to the backside of the mountains through North Ogden Divide, but we're located as far north and east as you can get in Weber County on the front side of the mountains. These population projections are a little bit old. We're just over 22,000 people right now, and we believe our build out based on water connections, current zoning, and what the growth rates have been will be about 40,000 people. So we're just about halfway through what I'd consider like our first round planning cycle. On this map itself, there's a number of these little islands. We are one of the highest contributors of unincorporated islands in Weber County right now, and we're not real active in annexing those. It's just basically upon request. And this southwest area of the city that's a little sawtooth that's been taken out is actually all in our annexation plan and has a current petition for annexation. So we'll likely pick that piece up. We're a healthy community. We're a very wealthy community. Our median income is $101,000. We're right behind Pleasant View in second highest median income for Weber County. Well-educated, and really would kind of consider ourselves primarily a bedroom community. Couple of fun facts, because I think fun facts are fun, is that the Paramount movie logo was based off of a napkin drawing of Ben Lomond Peak. The artist who drew it from memory, and the original logo wasn't quite as sharp as the current one is now, but when you get to North Ogden and you're sitting, say, at City Hall right now and looking up at Ben Lomond, it's much more of a triangle than it looks like from back further in the valley. So every time you see that Paramount logo, that's a little ode to Ben Lomond in the background. And then the next is the stump. So if you haven't come up and visited North Ogden and had a drink from the stump, you're really missing out. This is a well that was drilled in 1930. In 1931, there was a hamburger shop that was there. They rerouted a small amount of this water over and basically did a drinking fountain. For several years, it sat inside an old historic cutout pioneer era cottonwood tree stump that did eventually rot out. And so this is fiberglass now, but there's a sign that's showing what it is. And I mean, truth be told, like planner to planner, this is literally just culinary water. Like we treat it, it's just culinary, but there are people who come and they fill up their jugs and they swear that the stump water tastes better, that it's cold, that it's whatever. So it's a bit of a local legend, local lore, but it is a culinary water source that we shut off in the winter, we maintain, and we make sure it's chlorinated and taken care of. So
God, you know how many people are going to be disappointed when I tell them that now?
Don't tell them. This is a planner. This is circle of trust. This is the planner circle of trust. They don't need to know. Okay.
Commissioner Bolos is very.
This is a fun fact for you to enjoy. I wanted to highlight. I thought it was important since this is Wasatch Front Regional Council meeting to highlight some of the really great work that we've been able to partner with WFRC on. So I'm going to run through a couple of projects that we have. One, we're just finishing up an active transportation wayfinding system plan. Want to really, put a good word in for our consulting team, Parametrics, as well as those at WFRC. We have our city staff and a representative from the Trails Committee sitting there. This is a $90,000 project, 10% city match. It started with a mobile active transportation tour on e-bikes that was really successful. I did this presentation at the Active Transportation Committee meeting, so you may have heard me say this, but one of the members of our Trails Committee actually loaded their bike on their vehicle, drove it to City Hall, and then we started the tour and we rode past their house on the tour. And they realized how easy it was to get around on an e-bike in the city, just because we've got a flat area and then we have the hillside, and the hillside represents a pretty major barrier for active transportation. But these mobile active transportation tours are just transformative in getting people out on bikes and seeing what the facilities look like. So we, of course, have a beautiful plan, a great map that Parametrics has put together for us. We're focusing on connecting the community east, west, and north, south. There are, of course, the hillside challenges, and we have some sub-regional connections like this trail system that runs through from Pleasant View through North Ogden and into Ogden City. Also fortunate enough to have this come supported with a wayfinding whole plan. So we've got signage, we've got decision signs, confirmation signs. Something unique about this is that we're putting on the distances, so walk distance, bike distance, and an e-bike distance, and those have been estimated a number of ways. Some have been ground truthed by staff here, but the signs that we have are going to be going out. We have a test loop that's been funded for this year, so we'll begin to see some of these signs hit the ground this
Scott,
year.
did you say e-bike, walk, and bike distance or time?
Yes. So time. So there's walk
Okay.
time, bike time, and e-bike time. So think about it like, you know, you see these at the university, or maybe like zoos have them too, where you've got a radius and it's a 10-minute walk to this location. It's powerful information. People don't realize our parks are connected via trail, kind of like on a string of pearls. And if people start to realize that they can get from major city park or major city facility, the downtown area here, to the park, to the swimming pool, to our shopping centers, and it's a 5-minute bike ride or less, then, you know, maybe that'll be some behavior change. So I think the signage will be a really great addition to our active transportation plan. And then the second is we did a small area plan. These are both transportation land use connection funded projects. We did the Southtown commercial area plan. Again, MHTN, SOMAS, and Zions Bank Public Finance were great partners in addition to city and elected officials. The area itself is what I'd consider Old Town. Right here at the corner of 2000 and Washington Boulevard is the iconic Kurt's Drive-In. It's got like a 1960s era roof pitch. It's really unique. It's a building we want to preserve and save, and it's still operating as a hamburger place. And then on the corner, you have the Cannery, which is one of the really last existing old commercial buildings in North Ogden. It's currently Bullfrog Spas and an ice cream shop. But this area represents a great redevelopment potential for us. Zooming out just a little bit, some of the potential is that Coldwater Creek, which comes out of Coldwater Canyon, it feeds our fish farm, which is in unincorporated Weber County. But if you've never come and thrown pellets into the water and pulled a fish out, then you know you're missing out, because that's a childhood memory of mine from being here. Coldwater Creek traverses through the city and right through the project area. So some of the ideas were to daylight Coldwater Creek and create a commons and create the potential for a festival street and really a gathering place for the community in what right now is an old Macy's grocery store, an old King's Supers, and has a number of locally homegrown businesses, but it's just an underperforming center with a sea of parking right now. So this plan has been funded. This and the active transportation plan together will both be adopted hopefully late August. We have truth in taxation coming up, so we've got some weirdness with our meetings, but we'll be looking forward to adopting those. And then most recently is on the heels of the active transportation plan, the city was funded through the Transportation Alternatives Program for $300,000 to improve crossing locations of this sub-regional canal trail system. So we haven't located the exact final location, knowing that these are 2-year out funds that we'll have, but we're thinking likely 2750 North and 3100 North are the two locations. 3100 kind of fixing two issues. One, a safe routes to school with Bates Elementary, some missing sidewalk connection, as well as providing a pedestrian button controlled, signalized control stop for the connection from the trail to the trail. And then 2750 as well is a location where we have high growth, new neighborhoods, but missing sidewalk connections. And I think those funds would be best served there in that location, rather than Mountain Road, where we still have a lot of development potential to come. And we may be able to get developers to help us kick in and improve those trail crossings. Last thing I want to talk about is just some general plan information and housing. This image on the left is a map I found in my office. It's a hand-drawn general plan from 1961. And I think it's really interesting how far up the hill the city officials at that time considered that commercial would go, because there is no commercial north of 2600. This whole northern area is just a sea of housing. To orient you to the map, the large commercial area right here is essentially the convergence of 2600 North and Washington Boulevard. It is our commercial center. And this southern one is the Southtown Center, which back in the 60s, again, was a new grocery store with Macy's and the Kings there. So went through a planning process in 2021 and 2022. We've adopted a new future land use map. So that part's done. We're still working on our general plan, but lots and lots of single family residential in North Ogden, with our mixed use areas being kind of focused on the south and west and immediately surrounding our commercial areas. I think housing is on the top of everybody's mind. So today I went out, I looked at Utah real estate. We currently have 90 active listings, 3 of which, surprisingly enough, were under $300,000. That's the first time I've seen that in the last 2 years. We've had kind of a ceiling or a floor, I guess, of about 350, but there are 3 older townhomes that are currently available. 7 homes in the 329 to 400,000, and then the bulk being, mid 400s and up, with 31 of the listings being from 800,000 to $2.2 million on the current MLS. You can see sort of the divide in some ways. This is southern area is the flat area of town, and then as you march north and east, you go uphill, and that's where you pick up the majority of the higher end housing. Income needed to purchase a home, even at $265,000. I ran this analysis for our council 2 years ago, and it was kind of interesting, but making the assumption that you have a 20% down payment, 6.5% mortgage rate, and insurance and taxes not included, you need an income of about $52,000 right now, which over the last few years, our police officer salaries have been increasing. So we're starting police officers out at about $55,000. So they could just about attain housing in North Ogden, just about get in if it's a single income household. But if you're an administrative assistant, if you're a public works, stormwater person, you're going to be starting more like mid 30s, and it'll take you 3 to 5 years of experience to get up into that $50,000 range, at least for our incomes or our salaries that we're paying in the city. Which makes it really hard for people who work for North Ogden to live in North Ogden. We have a lot of in-migration for that, and it's just a known issue that we're all kind of facing and dealing with housing.
Scott,
Oh, go ahead, Allie.
it's Allie. I saw something the other day that was, I think it was in the Tribune. It was talking about if people are going to not be cost burdened, so their housing costs are not above 30% of their total income. In order to not be cost burdened, they would have to put a 6-figure down payment on a home. And so that makes it unaffordable to almost everybody.
Sure. Yep, I
Just
totally
thought
agree.
that was an interesting thing I read.
Yeah, it's crazy here, and we've seen a major slowdown in the number of applications. We have a lot of paper platted subdivisions. In fact, we just completed our moderate income housing report, like many on the call have likely done. And we're sitting between townhomes, single family homes, future apartments. We've got about 1,600 units of entitled units that I would give you a building permit for tomorrow. And we have approximately 6,500 water connections currently. So just a huge backlog of existing housing, but the cities, we don't have the power, the tools, or we can't force a developer to spend millions of dollars to pull a housing project out of the ground. So a lot of it is sitting and waiting. I think some of that's interest rate driven. I think some of it's the commercial lending market is how it's being driven. But we are still seeing custom homes, so those higher end homes being built, and then somewhere in the high 4s to mid 5s seem to still be able to sell, but they come in chunks. So they're obviously pre-sold. So they'll come in with 15 building permits at a time, and that community has sold all those homes. So housing continues to be a challenge, and growth continues to be a challenge, especially for the city, just because we are still 50% of what our build out will be. And then I've just got 2 last little things. there's a million projects that we could highlight. One of the major ones, though, is that the city just finished and christened, and we've opened up our new public safety building. So the city currently sits at 1 officer per 1,000 people. I think the national average is 2 officers per 1,000 people, but the 1 per 1,000 has worked for North Ogden. So we built this building with build out of the city in mind. So this will accommodate 40 FTE full-time officers. It's a huge improvement to our campus. It's expanded parking, it's improved landscaping. We've gone full water-wise landscaping everywhere that we could. And in addition to that, it's created a new modern space for us to have court, city council, planning commission. So all of our public meetings are now held over in the public safety building. And it's a wonderful improvement that we'll hopefully have, you know, for the next 50+ years, as the old police station had really, we had depreciated that asset fully, I'd say. And then kind of a fun one is we were funded through Weber County ramp funding to do a waterworks park. So if you're familiar with Knutson Park in Cottonwood Heights, really fun. It's again, it's hooked up to culinary water. So this is safe water if kids put their hands in it and drink it. And I think Bountiful has a similar kind of water park here, but you're able to pull water out of a little mini well and direct it where it goes. And this is going into a new park space alongside a townhome project just behind Lee's grocery store. So this is one of our latest parks. Some other improvements I didn't take a picture of or say is we completed a 2 million gallon water tank, which has solved the fire flow water issues for the southwest area of the city, really opening it up for development. So some of the development constraints that we've had are limited now, are no longer limiting us, and we can continue work just as we go forward with our general plan and being responsive to applications. And I guess I left out I accidentally deleted the slide. I was going to show the flag. So we have Major Brent Taylor, you know, lost his life in Afghanistan. He was the mayor of the city. And in memory of him, for 2 weeks of the year in November, the city flies the largest suspended American flag in the nation. So you can see it almost from I-15. When you turn off of I-15, you're coming up 2600. It's in Coldwater Canyon. That'll be flying the first 2 weeks of November, as it does every year. The ceremony that puts it up there is pretty amazing. And it's just another little fun fact, community fact about North Ogden. Really excellent community to work for. I've been here just about 3 years and love it. I'm happy to answer any questions, and otherwise, thank you for the opportunity to do a little spotlight and provide some information about North Ogden.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate that, Scott. I kind of feel like you told us that there is no Santa Claus, but on the stump. But okay, so here we are. If we need a volunteer for our September 11th meeting to do a little community highlight, just like 10 minutes on what's going on in your community, and see it's a good time to show off your community and make a good impression. So we are going to sit in awkward silence until someone volunteers. So
Weber County will do it.
all right,
We just did some attainable housing, working with the governor and his team. So it would be probably a good thing to spotlight.
all right, thank you, appreciate it, Rick. Plus it'll be in your backyard, so that'll be great.
Rick, I think it would be good too, maybe even to highlight the West Weber plan. I know it happened or finalized about a year ago or so. But there's a lot of good stuff that happening out there too.
Yeah, for sure. This is part of that. This is an actual implementation element that's part of that. It's 275 units of attainable housing that the commission just approved. So we're the first in the state that's actually started to implement this before they kind of maybe take the bull by the horns.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll hear more about that next month. Appreciate that, Rick. So we're going to move on to the Wasatch Choice Vision and Regional Transportation Plan. Jory.
All right, this will be a tag team effort for this whole item. I think Ollie will kick off about the RTP and the amendment, hand it over to Che, and then Lauren and Hugh will jump in, and then I think Che will finish that piece off, and then Ted and myself will kind of round it out at the end. So with that, gonna keep us on schedule, and hopefully we can get all this done by 3 so that Megan and Brent can finish up the last couple items. George Honor, Long Range Plan Planning Group Director here at WFRC, presenting on amendment number 2. You may be thinking, wait, didn't we just have an amendment? Yes, we did. We don't normally have them this close together, but we had some projects that were funded through House Bill 488 and some other projects that were updated in local active transportation plan. So it made sense to kind of get everything updated so that people could start spending that money. So just a quick reminder, RTP developed on a 4-year cycle, financial plan, and is fiscally constrained, conforms to air quality conformity regulations, so budgets, goals, controls, ties to your future land use plans and the Wasatch Choice vision. We can't overestimate or emphasize that. And it's divided into phases. So we don't just identify what projects are needed in the next 25 or 30 years. We figure out, working with you all, you know, in 10-year blocks there, as you can see on the screen. And it's the starting place for projects to move forward in prioritizing federal, state, and local funds. Periodically, adjustments are needed. This is our second amendment. I think most of you have heard this. I'm going to go through really quick, but each amendment level has a little bit different process. So level 1, this amendment number 2 has only projects in level 1 and level 2, which is the staff modifications, which are reviewed by the RGC chair and vice chair, and then approved by WFRC's executive director. And then level 2 projects are board modifications reviewed by you all, the RGC TAC, which I'll be asking for a motion at the end of this to make a recommendation to RGC. And then it's approved during the RGC meeting. When we have a level 3, that's a full amendment. Those and that requires a 30-day public comment period, new air quality conformity, and then ultimately final approval by our council. All projects during this are reviewed by the statewide interagency consultation team, and the financial constraints are reviewed by federal highways. So we are making sure we're doing all the things we need to do when we amend the plan. Here are the categories of the amendments and what types of projects. Not going to go through all of those, but you can see level 1 projects are mostly the smaller projects, ownership changes, operational projects, Wasatch Choice Vision, active transportation. Level 2 are kind of that mid-range of projects, collector, minor arterial road changes, non-fixed guideway transit. And then level 3 are the full amendments, which are principal arterials, freeways, fixed guideway transit projects. So let me go through the projects that have been approved. So we've approved the level 1 modifications in this amendment 2. All of them are active transportation projects. Within the amendment, there's a total of 15. 9 of them are level 1 AT projects requested from local communities in UDOT. And just want to emphasize that when we get a request or for a modification to the RTP or the Wasatch Choice Vision, we make sure we coordinate, you know, with surrounding communities, with the DOT, with UTA, and vice versa. If we get a recommendation from UDOT or UTA, we want to make sure the local communities are on board and support it within their community. So these projects were reviewed by Mayor Dandoy and Commissioner Kamalo in Davis County and Roy's mayor, and approved by Andrew yesterday, July 30th. So these projects are ready to go. I'll cover them in a little bit more detail, but hopefully really quick later. The 6 projects that are level 2 board modifications came from local communities in UTA. And again, these projects, a lot of them, and including the projects on the level 1, had funding attached to them, which is why we needed to kind of do a quick turnaround on our amendment. We usually try to do it on an annual basis. So for level 1 projects, you can see there's 1 up in Clearfield, and then the other 9 are down in Salt Lake County. Clearfield City received some federal funds for a new grade separated pedestrian bridge on 1000 East on State Route 193. Project will be provide safer crossings for the elementary school, the high school there, and connection to the Clearfield downtown center. Down in Salt Lake County, this project on Bingham Creek Shared Use Path updated the alignment, and it coordinated with the Copperton Active Transportation Master Plan. So, you know, as you all work with Megan and Hugh and Tim on your active transportation master plans or your city master plans, a lot of times those modifications, we want to make them match up with our regional transportation plan. So you'll often see almost in every amendment AT updates from master plan updates. Cottonwood Heights have the next two projects. They're interested in adding a project on the East Jordan Canal. They've started conversations with the canal company, and it extends an existing pathway up and over I-215 and then to some adjacent communities to the north of 215 there. And you can see the crossing here of 215. Down in Magna on State Route 111 or 8400 West, combined two existing projects within the RTP. They were both different types of active transportation projects. Now it'll be both of them are shared use pathway in phase 1, and it aligns with Magna's active transportation plan. And then on SR 111 and Cordero Drive, we had a grade separated crossing, but the communities and the state is installing a new signal. And so they decided they didn't need the grade separated crossing, and they would utilize that new signalized intersection. And we're moving that to phase 1 and updated the cost. And then this also will improve access to the new Cypress High School out in that area. Provo River Canal, Welby Jacob Canal, a shared use path in Riverton. This project was recommended from Riverton and UDOT. This is a unique project that has received funds from the state's Active Transportation Investment Fund and is part of the Utah Trails Network. So in a bit, Hugh will mention some Beehive Bikeways. We're working really closely with you all on that effort. He'll go into more detail, but we're also working with the statewide effort for the Utah Trails Network. This project had been funded. So look for opportunities because there's now funding on the state level for active transportation. Same with this project, funded from the Active Transportation Investment Fund on Bingham Creek Trail in Salt Lake County. They extended it to the west and then also did a little bit of a realignment on the east side. So you can see those modifications there on the map. And then this is a new project in Bluffdale City, coincides with a new pedestrian bridge crossing a railroad. But this is a separate project. We usually sometimes keeps the crossings and the actual trail project separate, helps sometimes with funding. And then this was also an Active Transportation Investment Fund, part of the Utah Trails Network. So those were the level 1s that have been approved. These are the ones that upcoming, the level 2s, I want to have you all make a recommendation to RGC. And you can see they're all down in Salt Lake County. These are all part of the House Bill 48. So I'm really going to go through them fast because it doesn't really cover your area, but it's also, you know, something to pay attention to. You all get part of your, I believe, third quarter sales tax. You have control of where it gets spent. Salt Lake County, since they're a county of the first class, the state helps them decide where they want to fund some of their projects. And so that's where this list came from. So not the whole list. The first one here is from UTA's Front Runner Forward study. This is for a new grade separated crossing on 900 South. In the Amendment 1, we had a handful of other grade separated crossings. We worked with Salt Lake City on this one. And then we want to move it forward and add it to the plan with the other ones that came out of the study. It'll help with, you know, all modes safety. It'll help with front runner reliability. And it's really, these crossings are a key step in UTA double tracking, and then eventually fleet upgrades, electrification or whatever of the front runner, getting our time and service down to 15-minute headway. So we want to get these in the plan and encourage them to get built. 2000 East is from down in Salt Lake from Atkin Avenue to 33rd South in Mill Creek. It's an operational project, includes ADA ramps, storm drains, bus stops, bike lanes, moving it into phase 1 from phase 2. These ones were all, the next 4 are HB 4088 projects. 41st South, it's an extension, just a little bit past SR 111, down in the West Valley area. So it's a new project added out there. New project in West Valley from 5400 South to 62nd on 6800 West. That aligns with West Valley City's major street plan as well. So we're really supportive of street connectivity. I think this is a really good project. Bingham Rim Road is currently in the RTP. A portion has been funded or built in the southwest part of the project. You can see the development down there. This funds that they received is for the part in the northeast, with the city planning to have the rest of it in the middle built as development just north of Daybreak. Continues kind of north there. They'll have the development build the rest of that project. And then the last project is a new operational project on the Bangerter Parkway between 150 East and 13800 South. That's been requested to be included into the RTP and was funded through HB 488 funds. So that is all of the projects. Run through some technical considerations and then open up for questions. So for the RTP amendment process, we do technical considerations. These match up with how we develop the 2023 to 2050 RTP, and they tie directly to the Wasatch Choice Vision goals. So you can see here, not leaving any stone unturned. We've done a safety evaluation. We've looked at vehicle hours traveled, connectivity improvements, project readiness, and providing access to urban town or job centers. And for the most part, these projects all improve safety and increase our active transportation networks, provide more connectivity across barriers, access to parks, Wasatch Choice Centers, industrial areas. And they also reduce time spent traveling in the vehicles, as well as increase reliability with that new the front runner system with that new crossing on 900 South in Salt Lake. So feel like we did a pretty good job coordinating with the local communities, DOT, UTA on, justifying why the projects needed to be in the plan as well. So with that, Barton concludes my portion of the presentation. Look for a motion to make a recommendation to the Regional Growth Committee. Made it really easy. If somebody knows how to read, they can just read it right off the screen. Open questions, I guess.
Okay, any questions for Jory on anything? All right, would somebody like to make a motion? There's a suggestion on the screen, or you might make an alternate motion.
I can make a motion. Let's see, I make a motion to recommend that the Regional Growth Committee review and approve the level 2 board modifications for amendment number 2 to the 2023-2025 RTP.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Is there a second?
I'll second. Steve Parkinson, Roy City.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, so reminder, this is how we vote. All in favor of the motion, stay silent. Anybody opposed to the motion, speak up. Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Jory.
Last piece, the RGC, the Regional Growth Committee meeting is on August 15th. And so we will take those projects in level 2 and then inform them of the level 1 projects and hopefully have those amended into the plan. So appreciate that. Next is, I'll hand it off to Che.
All right. So my name is Che Mosqueda. I'm a long-range planner at WFRC. I work primarily on roadway projects, but also am involved with advanced air mobility, freight, and water conservation projects. So today we're going to be talking about our strategy testing for the 2027 and to 2055 Regional Transportation Plan. We're going to look at the overall process, schedule, and our upcoming strategy testing. We'll go over why we test, how we test, and kind of what is involved in that process and the plan that the process that we plan to use and the next steps. So strategy testing is important, and there's a couple different reasons that we do it. There are different avenues to approach when we look at how to improve our transportation systems. We do it because we have to explore what different options are available and what will best serve our cities and communities at the regional level. So not only are we looking at projects that meet technical considerations by 2055, but we are also interested in exploring ideas that are more aspirational and visionary. The future is not certain. In order to prepare for it, we need to test different networks of transportation modes and explore the current systems to see where they can be enhanced and what the different positives and negatives are of each action. Our focus areas during strategy testing right now are looking at providing transportation choices, optimizing and enhancing current systems, and finding ways to create local and regional connectivity. So our strategy testing process is lengthy, and there's a lot of different steps because we want to basically get the best product in the end. Our strategy testing process is as follows. So in summer of 2024, we created our initial strategies plan. We're going to run these strategies through the travel demand model and bike model, and we're doing outreach to communities and our partner transportation agencies. We'll also perform additional modeling iterations to test strategies as we get the results back from the travel demand model and the bike model. For fall and winter of 2024, we'll gather feedback at our fall workshops. And then we'll test those ideas and test additional ideas. We'll run the revised plans in the travel demand and bike models, and we'll combine strategies and ideas to start forming our preferred scenario. In spring of 2025, we'll go back one, there we go. In spring of 2025, we'll create our preferred draft scenario, and we'll continue our outreach to local communities, transportation agencies, and other stakeholders.
Jay, do you care if I just interject here for a second?
No, go ahead.
So you might be thinking about how all this fits in to the development of an RTP, and a regional transportation plan is, it's all of us working together, flushing out ideas like birds in a meadow, that come from local governments, that come from UDOT and UTA, and we're trying to package these and understand them, the implications of them. And with the strategy testing, for starters, we're trying to get a sense of what performs well and what doesn't. And then that will help us all as we start this process of gathering ideas. Che just talked about it. We'll share with you, hey, how do different kinds of ideas play out? What are the pros and cons? But this work that we're doing as a staff before that is really it's more like an input as we start this kind of broad conversation over the next couple of years. Hopefully that's helpful and not confusing.
Awesome. Thank you, Ted. You can go to the next one. Okay, so as the roadway projects lead, I talked with Jory and talked with Julie Burnstead as well, and we kind of looked at different ways that we thought would be the best for improving and enhancing different aspects of the roadway system. So we have a very built out system of highways and local connectivity through the different grid systems across our region. So the main two goals basically that I wanted to look at was highway optimization, exploring different ways that we can reduce congestion, doing that through VMT, vehicle miles traveled, and VHT, vehicle hours traveled on different highway systems. And then also looking at local connectivity and optimization as well. So whether it be there is a highway barrier or a canal barrier or something that is disconnecting two communities that could be able to be connected, or create an alternate route for better travel throughout that part of the region. That was something I wanted to look at, as well as optimizing local roadway systems, whether that be for safety or for ease of travel, anything kind of in that area.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I do the transit component of the regional transportation plan. And so on the transit side, we're looking at what a more extensive fixed guideway network, such as bus rapid transit, streetcar, light rail enhancements, and an extensive bus network, so higher frequency core routes, might do for our transportation network. We'll be looking at what having more routes spread throughout the region with higher frequency can do for our transportation network users. And then we'll be looking at the associated land uses and what we might be able to accomplish. So that's just kind of a high level look at that. on the transit side.
On the active transportation side, so biking and walking side, many of you know we've been working on the Beehive Bikeways Initiative, which is a vision and implementation plan for a network of high quality in-town trails that connect Wasatch Choice centers, city and town centers. We started exploring Beehive Bikeways back in the fall workshops, Wasatch Choice fall workshops last year. And this spring and summer, we've met with many of you regarding the Beehive Bikeways, individually cities. We have others of you we still need to sit down with, and we'll get to you shortly on the draft. You can see the draft network there on the right of your screen with the Beehive Bikeway proposed routes in yellow, in contrast to the green existing regional trails that are shown in green on the map. So for the active transportation scenario in the 2027 RTP, we'll be testing how the Beehive Bikeways change bicycle trips across the region compared to the existing 2023 RTP. And we'll be using a new, relatively new bike tool to do that. So it's a modeling tool that we're excited to put to the test and see how it works for us. Some of the Beehive Bikeways routes are the same routes as planned in the 2023 Regional Transportation Plan, but they're upgraded in terms of the facility safety and comfort, or other routes are totally new or might be an upgrade to what is currently an existing facility on the ground. So testing the scenarios will hopefully give us a better understanding of the impact of connecting Wasatch Choice centers with these high quality bicycle facilities, which will again hopefully enable more people to travel by bike for more reasons more often. Thanks.
All right, so looking ahead, we'll continue to perform multiple iterations on the strategies throughout through testing as we gather data from the travel demand model and input from local communities and our transportation partners. We're going to draft a preferred scenario in 2025, and then our needs-based and fiscally constrained phasing in 2026 before the final adoption in spring of 2027. So there's a lot to consider when looking at different strategies, and we want to hear your thoughts and feedback when we're thinking about testing these regional systems or individual product, or when you're thinking about testing regional systems or individual products. You'll want to have these different items in the back of your head. These projects, you know, what is new projects, old projects, enhanced projects, optimized projects, innovative ideas, big ideas that are rooted in reality, networks, looking at connectivity and phasing of current projects for the future, whether that be, you know, a project gets moved up or a project gets moved back to make room, and looking at what your community wants, what your community needs, and what kinds of projects you guys are interested in testing. I'm not sure how much time we have for discussion, but I will open it up in case anyone has anything. And then if we need to move on, we will have a Google form that will be sent out after this, where you'll be able to reach us with any ideas that you do have.
Anybody have discussion?
And if not,
Ted,
sorry, go.
you're thinking, I see Ted's gears churning.
Well, I think that we want to touch base on these upcoming workshops, but I think that's perhaps after we give a chance to run the discussion.
Right. Well, I'd say, Che, in the interest of time, we will follow up. Jordan sends a follow-up email to our TAC meetings. We'll get that Google form in there. Know that as Che went over that schedule, we'll be working with you all closely, with UDOT, with UTA, over the next year, right? Reminder, year and a half, end of 2025, we want to have a set projects, set land use. Before that, Bert Granberg, he's on here, and his team will be working with you all on population and employment projections. So expect a lot of coordination in the next 6 to 8 months on this, and then, you know, we'll have workshops which I'll lead into here this fall. So unless there's anything anybody has, again, pressing.
Thank you.
So, okay, thanks, Jay, good job. We've held these workshops, Wasatch Choice Vision workshops for the last, I don't know, it feels like a decade or decade and a half. We are going back. If you remember last fall, we had 5 total workshops. We're back up to 8. So the workshops are as follows. Box Elder County, you can see at the top, October 16th. These are all from 4 to 6. Locations TBD, but I think this one might be in the new Perry City Hall. Northern Weber County, so Marriott, Slaterville, Harrisville, North Ogden, north area there, kind of everything north of Ogden, West Haven, Roy. October 23rd, Southern Weber, October 30th, which includes everything down to the county line, up to Ogden, West Haven, Roy, Hooper, I meant. And then Southern Davis County or Northern Davis County, November 13th, which includes Hill Air Force Base down to Layton. And then Allie's going to pretty much do all the planning for Southern Davis County, you know, per her comments early at the beginning of the meeting. I was joking. That meeting is October 21st. We invite all the elected officials, so city council, mayors, county commissioners. We invite your city managers, your economic development directors, your planning directors, your engineers. We have sent out the calendar appointments for all these. If you haven't received one, it's not because we don't love you. It may just be because you're new, you've moved cities, or we've sent it to your boss and it just hasn't trickled down. So if you're interested, let us know. Check in with help us promote these with your city council and planning commissions and your elected officials and others. Really important meetings. And I think, Ted, you want to chat a little bit about what we're going to talk about at these in these workshops.
So here's a basic pitch. You know, every cycle, every 4 years, we collectively work to develop our shared regional transportation plan and coincide that with your vision for the kinds of cities and town centers you want to create in your communities. That wraps up together into the Wasatch Choice Vision. Now, the Wasatch Choice Vision, even though it's a vision, has always been aimed to be pragmatic. And this cycle will not be any different. But this year is different. And I wanted to clarify it or explain it in one way. Normally, what we do is we explore together the question of what kind of transportation ideas do we think we can realistically get behind and would perform well and that we can commit to. And we start talking about that right off the bat. This year, we're going to carve out a little space to ask a different question first. And that question is this: what ideas could possibly occur that may or may not, maybe not ready to commit to, but we want to understand if how well they perform, and then we want to have a chance to ask ourselves the question, are we willing to do what it would take to make them happen? And so I hope that makes sense. It's more of an open-ended question of really, what are the things that we could strive to achieve, which maybe we're not totally ready to commit to yet? It's more a classic visioning, if you will. Now, it's not just to have a fun conversation. It's to see if there's some big ideas that we are then in turn willing to ramp up our activities to commit to. You can kind of think of the original light rail line kind of came about from that kind of thinking. You follow me? And you tell me if you're feeling this in your community, but we're getting a lot from our stakeholders across the region, from the chamber, of where do we go as the Greater Wasatch Front with transportation, with, you know, the form of our communities. What's the next thing we're going to strive to create? And I'll tell you, that the Olympic announcement is a big part of this fervor. And so we're asking the question, not just what can we get in place in the next 10 years, which you can imagine in the transportation world, that's not very long, but also as we build on the momentum of the Olympics, where are we headed? And so I hope that you'll come to these workshops that George just talked about, kind of with this spirit of, hey, what do we want to aspire to achieve? And it can be a big idea, maybe bigger than we have been exploring in Weber and Davis and Southern Box Elder, you know, for a couple decades, perhaps. So I'll leave that with you and turn back to our chair.
All right. So we are going to move to planning technical assistance. So Megan's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I will try to move through this pretty efficiently. A lot of you are very familiar with these programs. You've been using Transportation and Land Use Connection for a decade now, and many of you are well underway if you have an obligation for stationary planning. I know many of you do not, so we will not dwell on that just in case it does not apply to you. So first, let me talk about TLC, our Transportation and Land Use Connection program. This is our bread and butter every year planning technical assistance program. So it's really broad what we can help with: plans, studies, ordinances. It might be digging deeper and doing some market strategy or some some of that in the weeds analysis, but it's really open. So whatever your planning ideas are, this might be a good fit. All of this is toward implementing the Wasatch Choice vision, so as well as your city goals. So things that are creating communities to live, work, and play, or enhancing access to opportunities, creating mode choice, those are all eligible under TLC. This is a partnership with UDOT, UTA, Salt Lake County, and the Wasatch Front Regional Council. So those partners both fund projects as well as participate as is appropriate in these various projects. As a reminder, we did share this with you all, but in 2024, here's what we were able to award: just under $2 million in project funds. We funded 11 projects. 5 of those were in Salt Lake County, 5 in the Ogden urban area, in your area, and then 1 outside of our urban area in Tooele. Our letters of intent are already coming up again in September, and so I want to share a couple of ideas that maybe get the ideas flowing, or you may have something in mind already, and if so, feel free to come chat with us or submit a letter of intent. That's fantastic. Ted mentioned the Olympics and the fervor, I believe was the word he used, behind the excitement behind the Olympics. And so I have included a little maybe inspirational image of the Gateway Olympic Plaza here, just to maybe get your gears turning. You know, what might the Olympics mean in your community? Maybe you're not hosting an Olympic facility or anything like that, but we will be welcoming the world in 10 years. And so it might be a fun way to think about, you know, where your city might like to be. There's also ordinance work. We're working right now with Ogden on the Zone Ogden Unified Development Code project, and that is deep in the weeds of all things Ogden ordinances. It's been I see our Ogden friends nodding along. It's been an in-depth process so far, and we'll continue working on that. But you know, you can go from high-level visioning, you know, thinking about something like a community center you haven't talked about a lot before, or you know, get all the way into the weeds of rewriting your entire city's code. So lots of eligible under TLC. Some other more transportation-focused ideas. Hugh talked about beehive bikeways. Maybe there's an opportunity to work with a neighboring city on connecting some active transportation. Street connectivity and parking guidebooks are available through Wasatch Front Regional Council and could be applied in your community. And then we also have our Great Streets Framework, context-sensitive facilities through your city and town centers. We can utilize that framework within your city using TLC as well. So lots out there, as well as your core planning work. We do have an interactive map that's really useful. You can click through different project types, look at the projects that have been done in your community, especially if you're newer. This might be good to refresh your memory of what you've used the program for in the past. And then it has links to completed plans, and applications and things like that. So this is a really good resource if you're thinking about a certain type of project, or do you just want to explore in general. And you can always reach out, right? Reach out and talk to us about your project ideas. Let me pause there. Are there any transportation and land use connection questions that are burning? Okay, if they come up, we can address them at the end. So I'm going to go to station area planning. Station area planning is required for cities with a fixed rail station or bus rapid transit station. I believe that all of your communities who need to be thinking about this are. I don't think there are any of you that we haven't talked to at all. But just as a refresher, this legislation came in 2022, requiring cities to do a stationary plan around these areas. It came with a conversation about housing. So the first objective is increase the availability and affordability of housing. There's also an objective on environmental conditions, access to opportunities, and transportation choices and connections. So it's you know, a small area plan around a station. There are some required components here. I won't go through each of these, but what I really want to leave you with is that we do have technical assistance for this as well. So if you have additional planning work around a station or stations that you might like to think about the ordinances for, even if you are already planning, this is something that's available to you to do that work. This is how it's going. So it's 2024. These stationary plans have a 2025 deadline, and we're really moving along. We've certified 24 already. We have 4 more in the hopper to be considered in August. We have Clearfield and West Bountiful both being considered for certification in August, so that's fantastic. West Bountiful has a portion of Woods Cross Station, which we've done a study to see if there's any practicality to putting housing there. There are some challenges in West Bountiful for sure. So those are going to be considered soon. We're moving through, and there's a map to show it. So what I would really like to do is we're going to drop the link to this map in the chat. I would really like for everybody to just double check this map for your community. It has the status of every single station. And so we want to make sure that these statuses are correct, and we don't have you in progress when you haven't started, or we don't want to show that you haven't begun your stationary planning when you have. So go through, double check that map, and reach out to us if there are any corrections that need to be made, because we want to make sure that we're helping you meet that 2025 deadline, and that we're properly reflecting progress on this as we enter this next legislative session. We'd love to be able to tell the legislature that we're flying. So yeah, let's reach out if you have any questions about that, especially if this map that we will drop, maybe Jordan already has. Yes, Jordan has put that link in the chat. So reach out if that map has any corrections needed. Oops. And also reach out to us if you have questions about stationary planning, TLC, or you'd like to apply for some funding.
Okay, any questions for Megan? I've always told Megan, we really like Megan, and we really like Megan's plans.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Brett,
So
we're gonna talk about
on the for Transcom tax, Ben Withrich, who runs our TIP process, our Transportation Improvement Program, he's known as Mr. Moneybags. So is Megan known as Miss Moneybags?
Yes, I think so.
A South Salt Lake planner once told me I'm the tooth fairy.
All right, Brent, you're going to talk about community safety action plan.
Yes, thank you very much. Great. I'm sharing my screen there. Let me know if that's not coming through. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you on the Wasatch Front Area Comprehensive Safety Action Plan that we recently completed. As a little bit of a background, WFRC received funding through the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All program to complete the Wasatch Front Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. The federal SS4A program provides $5 billion over a 5-year period from fiscal years 22 through 26. And there are 2 grant types, a planning and demonstration grant and an implementation grant. The action plan was completed under the planning and demonstration grant type, and it establishes eligibility for jurisdictions then to apply for an implementation grant. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. In the past couple of years of funding, you can see there over 1,000 planning and demonstration grants funded throughout the United States and 85 implementation grants. The 2024 grant cycle is currently open. There are 3 dates for the 2024 grant cycle, the last of which is August 29th. The first 2 dates have passed, and those results for implementation and some additional planning are pending. The purpose of the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan is summarized here: a plan to provide local governments a means to make strategic roadway safety improvements. And again, it establishes eligibility that allow local jurisdictions to then apply for an implementation through the SS4A program. Do want to emphasize, we sure hope that the SS4, this Safety Action Plan is not just a means to apply for the SS4A program, but we want it to be a tool for the local jurisdictions to continue to use as they identify safety needs through other funding programs that they can use as a resource to help identify projects and present those projects for funding through a variety of funding sources. The final report that we prepared is available on WFRC's website. If you go to wfrc.org and then under programs, and then the drop down, you will see the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. The report is organized around the 9 requirements of the SS4A program. It requires a regional commitment. It includes a comprehensive safety analysis and then recommendations for specific projects. I'm going to talk a little bit about that safety analysis and then the recommendations, recommended strategies and projects. Because of WFRC is such a large area, we separated the entire region into 11 geographic focus areas and completed sub-analyses for each of the geographic focus areas. Several of you on this call today attended our geographic focus area meetings that we held last fall in October and again in February of 2024. The safety analysis for each of those geographic focus areas was organized around these steps here. I'll first talk about this emphasis areas analysis and then the steps that led to identification of a comprehensive safety needs network. This here shows the frequency of fatal and serious injury crashes within each geographic focus area, broken out by the emphasis areas from the Utah Strategic Highway Safety Plan. And you can see here, speed-related intersections and roadway departure represent the top 1 to 3 frequency of fatal and serious injury crashes in almost all of the different geographic focus areas, with exception to the Ogden area, the central Weber County. Pedestrians rises into the number 2. And you can see also pedestrians in the Salt Lake City geographic focus area. And then we have motorcycles up in Morgan County and in South Davis County emerges in the top 2.
Brent, interesting also on the West Weber, you've got 2 ends of the spectrum with the teen and the seniors, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Good observation. Our next step was conducting the safety analysis, identified this composite risk network. It was based on historical crash analysis. We identified all segments with 3 or more crashes over the last 5 years, and then we screened those to identify segments that had more crashes than we would expect over that same year period when adjusting for traffic volume and functional classification. We also incorporated results and input the data set, it's called USRAP, that is maintained by the Utah Department of Transportation and the University of Utah. Those all led to identification of this composite risk network that identified the highest priority safety needs within the region. This is a snip of the composite network map that is available on the Wasatch, the WFRC website under the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. You will see several maps, story maps in that site. The orange represents safety needs on state highways, the blue on federal aid routes, and the green on local streets. And then the pink are intersections that were identified as a safety need. Recognize that there are far more safety needs and could be addressed through a single plan or through available funding within a single year, et cetera. So we took an approach to identify up to 3 case study projects, building upon those identified safety needs for each jurisdiction within the WFRC area. We identified those case study projects to serve as examples of the types of improvements that could be implemented within the region. Those case study projects also represent priorities as input from jurisdiction or geographic focus area workshops, and they can serve as initial applications for grant implementation grant applications through SS4A, through HSIP, capital improvement projects, et cetera. This is an example of the 3 projects that were proposed for the city of Layton. If you go onto the map and you click on the segments for these case study projects, it will have a project ID, and it will also tell you the appendix within the report for which you can learn more information. That appendix, an appendix has been prepared for each geographic focus area. When you locate the specific project information sheet within the appendix, this is an example of what that will look like. Has a name of the project, a map, then we go into a project description and a recommendation as to what types of improvements and countermeasures could be implemented within that location. We also provide a planning level cost estimate. All of the recommendations are generally derived from Federal Highway Administration's what they term as proven safety countermeasures. Those proven safety countermeasures have been shown to be effective in reducing the frequency of fatalities and serious injuries and are backed by data. Those proven safety countermeasures are listed here. There are 28 of them. Federal Highway Administration continues to add proven safety countermeasures as additional research becomes available. Another key part of the Safety Action Plan was a Regional Safety Commitment Resolution that was adopted by WFRC in March of 2024. And that resolution established a goal to reduce deaths and serious injuries for all roadway users by 50% by the year 2040. That equates to a goal to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by 2.5% each year compared to the preceding 3-year rolling average. And that was adopted again by the Regional Council in March 2024. And that was a requirement of the SS4A program in order for jurisdictions to then apply for implementation funding. So again, the report is available on WFRC's website under Programs and Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions that folks may have.
Okay, any questions, Brent?
Kip, did you want to mention anything else in support of that?
Well, just to encourage everyone to use that resource, there is a vast amount of information, much more than Brent could cover in 10 minutes, let alone an hour. So if you're interested in safety improvements in your community, I encourage you to take the time to dig into that comprehensive safety action plan resource and see what you can discover that would benefit your community and the projects you're entertaining.
Yeah, this sounds like a great resource because I know everyone who's ever been to a planning commission or city council meeting has people showing up talking about safety. Some of the problems are real and some of them are imagined. And I think this would be a great resource to help address the real and maybe imagine some of the imagined. All right, thank you very much, Brent. So we covered our other business already. So is there any other business that we need to cover before we adjourn?
Barton, oh, yeah, we did. We got a volunteer. That's right.
Yep.
Weber County. Good.
Yep. All right, so we are actually going to adjourn 5 minutes early. So, right. Thank you, everybody, and see you in Ogden on September 11th. And take the front runner or public transit or drive if you want, or walk or bike. But we'll see you in September 11th in Ogden. Thanks.
See ya.
Thanks, Barton.